So here I am again. I know I haven't recorded or rather posted anything in a while, but there was a major issue, and that was that this garage did not have air conditioning. An issue I fixed with this nice Chinese split unit from Amazon. And the good news is that now it is currently 68 degrees Fahrenheit, which I believe roughly transfers to like 20 degrees in communist. But now I can work in here. I don't just have to hide in my bedroom and watch YouTube videos all day instead of making them. So I'm gonna do something that I've been trying to do now for, I don't even know, it's probably going on a year, and that is lower the 73 C10 with the LS in it. I've had the parts to do it since September, and I just never had a chance to do it. I was gonna do it at the garage that I work at, but then just too much going on there. I didn't want to take up a lift, so I was waiting for this garage to get done. Then it got hot out, so here we are. So I'm finally gonna get to it, and I'll kind of give you an update on what's going on with the truck in general, because now I've been driving it for about a year without, I think, any updates at all. So there's not too much new under the hood. I think everything is about how we left it. I've gotten the air conditioning working in it, but aside from that, I think it's been like pretty trouble-free. The Volvo fan went bad once for some reason. It just locked up on me. So I got another junkyard one, and now that one's been okay. But haven't fiddled with the tune or anything really. It does ping. Gotta get around to that, but it really pings. But from what I've been told, I think that's just kind of normal. Now, one of the other things I'm trying to fix here with lowering it is that the suspension's like literally falling off the truck, and has been. So I'm not sure how well this is gonna pick up on video. If you see there's a yellow shock in there, and let's see if I can get this thing going here. Now, both the front shocks move completely independently of the frame, and that is because that mounting bolt that is down there that holds it to the frame rail is loose in the frame, so I'm suspecting it's ovaled out. But each shock can probably move, probably all travel like probably 3/4 of an inch up and down. So that's good, but wait, there's more. So under the rear, you can see the leaf springs have had a bit of a hard life. Now, I don't know if anyone remembers when I first got this truck, but this was owned by a guy that did tree work. So I have a feeling that these may have been a bit overloaded at some point, because the bottom is cracked, and at least that one. I'm sure the other ones are probably cracked too, at least in one leaf pack or the other. Look at that. So yeah, that wasn't really helping anything. And then there's a bunch of stuff like under the truck that rattles around when you go over bumps. Like basically just driving this truck around, everyone looks at you because it sounds like you're hauling like 10 bowling balls in the bed. So I pretty much have had enough of that. I'm gonna attempt to fix that all at once here. But probably like the most important part is that I'm gonna lower the truck so it looks cooler and probably rides worse. But we'll see how this goes. I'll show you what I bought. So here's the pile of boxes of the parts that I bought 9 months ago. It's from DJM Suspension. It's a 5-inch lowering kit, 5-inch front and 5-inch in the back. Could have gone less, could have gone more, but I think this will be a compromise. It came with drop spindles in the front, which I painted because they sat around for so long that they started to rust. Not where the bearings go, but the other part. So I want to put rusty parts on brand new. And then some other stuff over here, springs, some bump stops, and then there's a flip kit for the rear, which will actually take the axle and put it on top of the leaf springs instead of underneath. And then it came with shortened shocks for the front and the rear. And then I have other maintenance items here. I have new ball joints, wheel bearings, brake pads. There's new brake rotors under there because those are shot. So I figured since I have to take all that stuff off and technically reuse it, I might as well just put new stuff on. The truck already has new calipers, hoses, everything else in the brake system. Actually, it has new brake pads too. I'm just gonna change them again because I'm changing the rotors. But all that stuff was already previously done because it seems like every time I buy a square body, it needs everything in the front brakes, or all the brakes really. I'm gonna get started on the front because the rear is more complicated because I'm gonna be changing the leaf springs. I have a pair of leaf springs I think that might work. I'll get into them later. I hope they do at least, or else I'll have to buy new ones. But the front should be pretty straightforward. Everything in the kit should just bolt onto this and solve the issue. So I guess the first step is going to be to take all the wheels off. Like I was saying about the shock, it makes a little bit of noise. Now I undid both the ball joints. I didn't separate them yet, and both the nuts are left on there by a few threads. So in case this spring decides to leave the truck, it won't like take my head off. People make a big deal about these springs on struts and everything, and I know there's a lot of force in them. Usually when they come out though, they just kind of like fall out, but still you should be safe. I don't go through all the nonsense of like the compressors and all that. Someone taught me years ago, all you have to do is fish like a section of chain down through the spring, and if you really, you can just leave it there, but if you want to connect it, you can connect it. But then if the spring does come out, it keeps it from like getting wild on you. It'll keep it in the pocket pretty much, then you can just pull it out. There you go. So I just looped it through there and I put the lower shock mounting bolt in it to hold together. So now if it does pop out, it's gonna kind of just stay in there. So now I gotta separate I guess I'll pick the upper one to separate it. I'm probably gonna end up putting both ball joints in it. I knew the bottom ones were bad, but the upper ones, now that like when I was loosening this, I could see the ball joint moving, so I think they're both shot. So there's no real use saving either boot. That's that. Okay, so I got everything apart. Unfortunately, I had the camera facing the ground when I took the spring out, but there wasn't anything really exciting that happened. So this just escalated. I just saw the lower control arm bushings are blown out. I was trying to avoid looking at them because I knew that would be the answer, but that one's pretty bad. And I'm actually concerned that it's been wearing into the shaft there that these bushings go on. You can see there's a shaft that goes from left to right, and the bushings actually ride on that, and then the shaft itself bolts to the frame. And you see that like kind of like rust dust there, that's not good. That means the sleeve of the bearing's been grinding into something. So this ain't getting put back together today either way. I'm going to order parts, and it's 4th of July weekend, so no one's going to be open. So yeah, it's a holiday weekend on top of the regular COVID issues. So I guess what I'll do instead is take both sides apart, which I wasn't really going to do at once, and then I guess I'll start doing the rear instead then. So I just want to show you how much of a complete pain in the ass these control arm bushings are. So I had to melt the old ones out. I had to melt the rubber out of them. Just pressing those bushings out real quick. And then I had to cut slits in this part here, which is the actual sleeve of the bushing. And then I hammered it out. But then to get the new ones in, you have to press them in. And the problem is that the control arm is sheet metal right here. So you just get wacky with a hammer. Instead of pushing the bushing in, it'll just smash this flat. So I looked up some other videos, and guys are making spacers out of exhaust pipe. Well, that didn't really work, so I made these out of this like 1/8 inch pipe. So it's a little tight now, but this is a little better. You put that in there. There's the other half, goes around, like hose clamp it. Then I need these big ones for here. See, they got a little tighter. I already did this one. Same thing, clamp that in, clamp one in there. Then you can press the bushing in. You can slide this shaft in, and then you can press the other bushing in. But you have to make all these spacers or else you'll just fold your control arm up. So basically, this is a giant pain in the ass, like I said. I bought new upper control arms already assembled because they were cheap. They were like 60 bucks. So when you think about it, like the ball joint's going to be like 20 or 30. These bushings are 15 per arm. So at that point, like spending 60 bucks for one that's already assembled isn't that bad. The lower ones though, the one side I think was like 150. I forget which side it was. I couldn't find the other side anywhere in stock on the internet for like under 300. So at that point, I just decided to press the bushings and adjust the lowers. It's a little bit easier to justify doing that and spend the labor. But for 60 bucks, getting the upper ones already assembled, it's more than worth it when you consider your time involved. Well, I got the control arms reinstalled after that whole fiasco with pressing the new bushings in. Like I said, I ordered just complete upper ones because that was nonsense with the lowers. So now I get to go back to where we initially stopped at, which is lowering the truck. So I'm just gonna put it on the ground, put the lowering spring in, put the spindle in, button it up. It's a lot easier with the new springs because being that they're lowering springs, they're actually shorter, so there's not much like tension on them when you put it together. I mean, you could probably just put it in without even jacking it up, but it's not that bad. But you definitely don't need a spring compressor or anything. I just put a jack under the lower control arm here, and then basically press it up into the upper, and then bolt it together, and it's all set. And I also fixed the shock mounting bolts here. Instead of like welding the frame or anything, I just got 2 big washers and cranked it down and sandwiched it in. So now those are good. So yeah, back to reassembly. There's a little like hat up in here you have to center the spring on. There's a lower part in the control arm here where like the pigtail of the spring lays in. And then the spring kind of like sits where it belongs. But basically, you just get this vaguely lined up. There you go. Then you just start the nuts a few threads. And there you go. You're pretty much free from death. Well, there you go. So as far as I know, the front end now is done. I don't think the camera was filming when I put the rotors on, so I apologize, but it was just putting a brake rotor on, so hopefully you didn't miss too much. The only thing I didn't do is tighten. There's a nut on the end of the upper control arm and the lower control arm where the bushings are. The vehicle should be at ride height with the weight on the suspension before you tighten them, because they actually have little like bitey nibs in them. So if you tighten them with it drooped, when the suspension compresses, it's gonna like preload the bearings and make them tear prematurely or immediately. So they should be like at their neutral setting when the truck's sitting on the ground at ride height. So once I get the rear suspension done, I'll put jack stands on their both front control arms and let it off the lift, and then tighten all 4 of those nuts on each side. But I think that means then I gotta move on to the rear, which I thought was gonna be the harder of the 2 ends of the truck to do. I thought I'd have the front knocked out like in one day, and we see how that went. So I guess let's see what fun awaits in the back of the truck now. So I have new leaf springs to replace these, which adds fun to this. Gonna try and get all these nuts loose. These I'm not too worried about, because if these don't come loose, I can just cut the U-bolts because the kit came with new ones. But these end ones preferably have to come out, or it's like a real suck show what I'll have to do. I'll have to slice the ends in here and get new bolts or get a new shackle, but oops, there's a light. Either way up front, they have to come out. So I don't know how these are gonna cooperate. I doubt these have ever been off since the truck was new. But I'm gonna put the rear down on some jack stands, disconnect everything, and then guess see how this works out. Well, both leaf springs are out, and unfortunately for me, they're not the right ones. Well, actually, the ones in the truck are the right ones, because they came out of the truck. But the ones I had been hoarding are too short, as you can see. So the ones from the Blazer are not right. So too bad about that. You can see the old springs, though, were in really nice condition. There's some pieces of them all over the place. Here's some more, because they just fell apart when I took them out. And then I had to cut all but one bolt out. One bolt did come out like it was intended to, but all the rest of them I had to cut off with the cutoff wheel. So I'm gonna need new shackles and new bolts. So I guess I'm gonna be getting new leaf springs, new shackles, and new bolts before the project will continue. So it's 2 weeks later again, and I have new springs. I was gonna do some hokey shit of like combining those Blazer springs and the broken leaf springs off this, and then I got some sense and just bought new springs. So now we're gonna put the springs in. I got new shackles and new bolts. I found the directions for the lowering kit last night for the rear, and they aren't even for this truck, the ones they sent. They're totally wrong. So I looked up on Google Images how this goes together, and I think I have it right. So I guess now we're gonna try and put it together. So we got the springs in. This is the flip kit here. It just came with this little piece of like U-plate that holds up the spring perch from the underside. This used to be down here, so this keeps you from axle wrapping. Then it came with new U-bolts and a new spring plate. So that was pretty straightforward. It came with these shock drop brackets, which bolt over here. I'm going to have to move these over a little bit or grind them or something, but this will drop the shock about 2 inches. I was trying not to use them because I didn't want to have this dragging under the truck. And then I bought shorter shocks, but when I opened the boxes up, it's only like 1 inch shorter than the stock shocks. And I just tried to trial fit them, and when you put them in here, they're like probably 4 inches from going on to the upper mount. So I guess you do need these. So I'll just have to put these on now, and then I can put the shocks on. I got new wheels and tires, the only wheels that matter, factory steel wheels. And then one size smaller tire. There was two 35/75 15s on it. Apparently that will rub with a 5-inch drop. So you have to run two 25/75 15s. So I got these nice Solaris Classics from Pep Boys before they went out of business. Rest in peace, Pep Boys. But we're almost there. well, here it is. That's how you lower a truck in a weekend that turns into 2 months. But I guess I should have known better than assuming that all the parts were going to be good. So, because I know better for next time. But now it has a completely new suspension. I mean, the only thing that's really reused is the shells of the lower control arms and the tie rods and such, but they were fine. All the bushings are new, even have new rear leaf springs in it, so made it ride a little better now because it drove like crap before. I have a new bumper for it, just ran out of time. Just wanted to get it out of the garage. You can see my fancy Copo hubcaps I've been hoarding for it. So yeah, I guess we'll see how it drives around. Last I touched it, it was fine. 2 months ago. But other than that, I'm just I'm gonna try and clean up the grill a little bit. If you remember, I'm not trying to go like nuts restoring this thing. I'm gonna drive it every day. So I don't want to be like upset like if it gets scratched or nicked or anything like that. But yeah, I'm with it. I was worried it was gonna be like too low, but this seems okay. But see if I'm still okay, and then after it gets like hung up on everything when I'm driving it. But yeah, hopefully more updates on this truck soon, and the rest of them too.